These are a few of our random ass things.
Howdy, folks. Little impromptu live stream, little rats, random ass things. Going to talk about some customizing tools today. So I've got a bunch of my stuff out. I actually had just recently been ordering some new stuff because we got this customizing studio event going on at Legion's Con this year. And I wanted to give some stuff out as door prizes. So I've been ordering a few things. And recently in our group chat that we have for the customizing studio, it was brought to my attention that maybe there's some newer folks in the community that aren't as familiar with kind of what tools you might want to use, different techniques, things like that. So just trying to kind of help out a little bit there if I can. But housekeeping wise, I just want to throw out there that the things that I'm going to share with you today are stuff that I use. I am by no means any sort of professional or even what I would consider good at customizing. My strength lies in I am very particular about things. And so I will keep working on a custom until it looks the way that I want it to look, which means that I cannot bang them out as fast as some other people. But I feel like once I'm done, the detail looks pretty good, but it's not natural for me. So I'm going to talk about some things, share some things that some of you are going to be like, that's freaking whack. I don't want to do that he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. And that's cool. I'm just going to share what I use. If it helps you, great. If it doesn't, hey, that's all right too. For anybody watching this on the replay, I'm going to try to add links for most of the stuff that I'm showing today, so that if you do want to purchase any of this stuff, you can. I get no kickbacks or benefit or anything. I will say that most, if not all, the links will be Amazon, just because that's where I order most of my shit. It's just easier to do it that way. So, but once again, I got no deal with Amazon or anything like that. So if you feel like buying something, great. If you don't, whatever, that's cool too. I do have some folks out there. Just want to call out the folks that are watching live. I see Jeff Evans. Patrick Boyle says that he will be catching the replay. Got Rob Zamora out there. Rob just did a great video on new to Mythics with Schmerber. So if you're in the Mythic community, definitely check that out. It's really good. Dave Orkin, the t-shirt man himself. We got Kinkpool Collects out there. Tanya McCoy, L Tidy, Brett. Hey, you know what? This is a good Brett time. You know, a lot of the live streams are late at night when Brett's going to bed. This is like prime Brett time. So we got Jesse out there, or do we? Maybe I'm Jesse, because when I type it shows up as Jesse because I'm in the channel right now. So we don't know. Maybe it's Jesse, maybe it's not. Michael Morales is out there, and the one and only Emil Wickman. All right, so just gonna go through some stuff. I'll talk to you kind of about what I use things for, and then how often I use it. Is it something that I use all the time? Is it something that I rarely use? Maybe it comes in for clutch situations, whatever. But I've got a ton of shit to go through. So I'm just going to start going through this. I'm going to try to pay attention to the chat as much as possible. I do see Carlo just jumped on. Hey, Carlo, and Kevin Baboots. So where do we start? Okay, I think I'm going to start with this. This is probably a pretty common one. Anybody that has been to any kind of toy shows and stuff, especially in the Mythic Legion community, probably seen one of these. This is a spool holder for thread. And then we've got these little Nerf darts that we've put on these. I think the first person that I saw do this was Nikki Nicole Cheney. This allows you to, if you're getting like 3D printed heads, they usually have enough space in there to where they just slide right over this, and this will hold it in place without having to, you know, attach it with any blue tack or anything like that. So this works really nicely. So, you know, if you are starting and you just want to, you know, either kind of display some heads that you want to paint, you can use this. If you've painted some heads and you want to display them at a show, this works as well. So this kind of spool holder usually is about $10-12. It's not that expensive. And then the Nerf darts, depending on if you get the actual Nerf or if you get, you know, off-brand, you know, it's not going to cost that much either. So so there you go. I did paint this one up. It usually just comes kind of like a plain like light brown color. And then I painted it up so that it was a little closer to match with the Nerf darts. Just kind of looks a little bit nicer. So there's that. And I would say for this, I mean, I use that all the time. You know, I've actually got, that one's a 60 head or 60 spool holder. I've actually got a 121 that I saw from Dirk's Designs. Dirk uses it at some shows. And it's really tall. And so I use that to hold all my unpainted heads that I kind of want to work on. So it sits on my desk and then I can kind of look through it, and I've got it sorted, you know, by type. So like I got skeletons together and orcs together and space ones together, that kind of thing. So if I'm like, hey, I feel like kind of painting a skeleton head today, just look at the skeleton row and I go, okay, I'll get that one and take it down and kind of paint it. So that's that. Let me just check the comments real quick. Okay, so let's see, where do we go next? Let's kind of maybe start with priming. So got a few different primers here. This is the best of the best. This is, in my opinion, I don't want people yelling at me. Citadel Chaos Black. This thing is awesome. The only problem is it's about, you know, depending on where you get it, $18 to $20 a can. So it's expensive, but if you're doing certain parts, this is the one you want to use. So for instance, like if you're doing like the loin pieces or the waist pieces that are kind of a more flexible plastic, if you use a cheap primer, a lot of times it'll get real sticky and it's hard to get that off. It's almost impossible to get that stickiness off. So even as you paint other layers on top of it, all it takes is you bump it into it or whatever, and it's just going to kind of gum up and come off and stuff. But this stuff does not. This goes on very flat and adheres to whatever you use it on. So, you know, this is kind of my go-to, especially for anything soft. For just like a resin part, 3D resin part, you know, a lot of times we'll use this. Sometimes I'll use the Chaos. It just depends on how much money I feel like wasting. But I saw them using this at the Four Horsemen studio. They've got boxes and boxes of this stuff. This is Rust-Oleum 2X primer, gray, flat. And if you're just doing like a resin part or something, this works great. This is one of those ones that if you spray on one of those softer pieces, though, it's going to gum up and you're not going to be happy. So just be careful where you use this stuff. I usually have some sort of white primer. So this is just a Rust-Oleum 2X primer, white, because white sucks to paint. Like if you talk to pretty much anybody that, unless they're using an airbrush, they're going to tell you white sucks because you have to do so many layers. So if you can prime it white first, that really helps. You know, once again, if you're doing some sort of softer pieces, I know Citadel does make a white primer. May want to go with that, but for, you know, just something resin printed, like I just did a shield that's like a Templar shield that's a 3D printed one, and yeah, sprayed it with this thing and it made my life a whole lot easier. So that's priming. Let me check the comments again. Okay, so we're good there. Next, let's go with sanding. So sometimes you're going to need to sand pieces, whether it's you get a 3D printed part, maybe it had some supports on it that you had to get off or whatever. You know, a couple things. Let me actually backtrack a little bit. Number one, you're going to need an Xacto knife. Now, this isn't an opinion. This isn't like, you know, Curtis uses this, but you're going to need an Xacto knife. I would say 98, 99% of the customizers, if not 100, use an Xacto knife. And I would encourage you to make sure you're using a sharp blade. If you have a sharp blade, it's going to go a whole lot easier. Also, something like this tends to help. This is a Citadel pair of snippers. Probably has a more scientific name, but that's what I call them. And this works too to kind of, you know, cut some of those supports, or if you need to remove something. Also, you know, in addition to supports, like if you just want to add some like battle damage or something, like let's say you've got a Mythic Legion Knight and you want to add some like cuts and scrapes in his armor and stuff, Xacto knife work really well for that too. So there's a couple cutting options for you. And then if you want to sand it, I get a pack of these, and these are sanding sticks. You can get these on Amazon, and it has a whole bunch of different grits. I think it from 80 grit all the way to like 7,000. And so I've got just like a tray of these here. And the good thing about these is they're tapered at the end, so you can get them into really tight spaces if you need to, but then it has a wider space in the middle. So if you need a little bit bigger sanding surface, you've got that as well. So it has kind of both. And I think this pack has like I think it has like 4 of each sanding stick from 80 all the way to 7,000. And I think it's like maybe $10 or something. Don't quote me on that. I'll put the link in the thing after I'm done, but these are really nice. And, maybe it's just, you were painting something and a little spot had gotten too much paint or something, and you just want to sand it down. You want to make it a little bit smoother. Maybe it had some brush strokes in it and you want to take it down a little bit and kind of reapply that. You could just go with the higher grit sanding stick. Maybe you start with a 2000, which would be like this one here, and they've all got numbers on them. And you could just kind of sand that down and smooth it out a little bit, take it from 2000 all the way to 7,000 if you want, make it really super smooth, and then paint it. So sanding sticks, those I would say, I don't know that I use them on every single custom, but I use them pretty often. So that's one that comes up quite frequently. Let's see. Let's check the chat. Tanya says SoFlat titanium white. That works really well. I am going to get to SoFlat here in a second. Steph says, is an intro to painting. Help me out. Just tuned in. I'm just kind of talking about tools today. So I guess you can consider it kind of an intro thing. Once again, this is just stuff that I use. So, by all means, this is not necessarily the right answer. This is just what I do. So Tanya brought up SoFlat, so I guess I'll talk about that next. And this is a 6-pack of SoFlat paints, some basic colors. So you've got, blue, green, yellow, white, black. So this stuff is awesome. Okay. It has really great coverage. They've got some very vibrant colors. The studio, I know, when you go visit them, they use a lot of SoFlat paint. Now they use a lot of stuff. So I'm not trying to say they exclusively use SoFlat. And I'm talking about the 4 Horsemen studio for those watching. They use some craft paints. They use some, Citadel, all kinds of different stuff. But they use a lot of this stuff, and it has a really good flat look when you apply it, and it's got great coverage. This 6-pack of basic colors runs about $35 on Amazon, but they're really big bottles. Like these are 2 full-ounce bottles, which is a lot more than what you get from like a Vallejo or a Citadel or something. They last a long time. So just FYI. And for those of you going to the customizing studio event, you may have a chance to get one of these. I bought a couple of these for that event. So little door prizes. Okay, brushes. Let's talk a little bit about brushes. There's a crap ton of brushes out there. I'm just going to show you what I use, okay? Because I find it beneficial. This is just a pack of brushes they have on Amazon. And actually, let me try to pull that up real quick so I can see the name on it. Because it's got a good amount of different brushes in there. From a number 2 all the way down to like a 10/0. Let's see. Okay, so this is, let me share my screen. This is Golden Maple Miniature Paintbrush Set. So this is $13.59. And you can see down here, they've got some other different ones. But this one here has, you've got a kind of a squared off, let me see, let me go back to this picture here. You've got kind of a squared off brush there at the top. Then you've got a number 2, a number 1, a 0. You got a 3/0, 5/0, and then a 10/0, which is your very tiniest. And then you've got a couple kind of your dry brush ones over there at the end. So this is a really nice set. And for $13, like, I don't know that you can kind of beat that price. So this is my go-to kind of basic set. But then I also get these ZEM brushes. And this is also on Amazon, and I'll put the link in when it's done. But it comes with 5 brushes here, and these are super tiny detail brushes. So like this one here is a 20/0. Let me see if I can get that to focus. I don't know if I will. So that's a 20/0, and like they are like the tiniest little tips on these to get into those really detailed spaces. So if you're doing, you know, eyes, or you're just trying to get some really tiny details, these help out quite a bit. So those are like my main 2 sets of brushes that I get. And then, you know, a couple other things that I use for brushes. These like testers ones, they come in a 3-pack. It's like a number, I think 2, 4, and 8 or something like that. These work pretty good for dry brushing. And then also the E.L.F makeup brushes. Let's see, I think here's one. These work really good for dry brushing as well. So that's kind of majority of what I use for brushes. So I've got, you know, the maple set, the ZEM tiny detail set, and then just some kind of dry brushing stuff. I do have one more brush that I use, but it's not for painting. This is, and I've had this for a while, so it may look a little kind of beat up. This is a Martha Stewart brush that came in a 3-pack, and it is a huge brush, and I use this for dusting. So if I sanded something and I need to get the dust off of it, or let's say that, you know, I just grabbed one of the heads that are sitting on that 120 rack and it's been sitting there a while and it maybe it's collected a little dust on it, I just use this and get that dust off of it. So that's just kind of a little dusting brush. So once again, this is just how I use things. So there's brushes. Let me take a look. Let's see. To see if there's any questions. Rocco says smash that like. Thanks, Rocco. Appreciate it. Do elves make those brushes? They may. I don't know how makeup brushes are made, so it is possible. Yeah. And Eric is actually where I got the idea for the E.L.F brushes. He posted that in the Cabal, which if you're a customizer and you're customizing Mythic Legions, you really should be in the Cabal, because there's a lot of great artists there that share different tips and techniques. I know Eric has shared different tools, as well as, you know, he's done some things with, like, he'll get a few contrast paints and he'll, you know, paint like a head in different parts of the contrast paint, so you can kind of see what they look like on a head sculpt. So definitely join the Cabal if you're not in there already. There's a lot of great stuff there. So there's paint brushes. Next, I'm going to talk about something that, once again, I think this is probably used by just about, you know, most every customizer. And this is some form of blue tack. Now, this is Fun Tak from Amazon. I think they got like a 6-pack of this. That's fairly cheap. So it's not like the official named blue tack, but it's, you know, this stuff here that you can put on, you know, like little sticks and, you know, hold your heads in place. And yeah, this stuff works really well. So a lot of the 3D printed parts, they're going to have a hole size in the head, like the head, that's bigger than what the neck is. They don't just pop on. And there's some people out there that'll say, hey, we've got a pop fit. You'll hear that term, pop fit. I personally don't like pop fit because resin parts are hard. It's a hard resin plastic. And if you've got something that's supposed to pop on tight, odds are it's either not going to fit, it's going to fit too loose, or you're going to crack it. So I like when 3D printers will actually make the hole size a little bit bigger. You throw some of this blue tack in there, you get a bigger range of motion as far as moving the head around. This stuff works really well. So Oh, and the Wolf Den. Yeah, Wolf Den has some great customizers and they're sharing things as well. Eric Miller's in the chat. He says he also uses the makeup brushes. So there you go. You can't get much better than that. Super chat from Guaisagüe Echevarria. Says, awesome stuff, guys. Be back for the replay. Thank you very much. Okay, so now you've got blue tack. What do you do with that? All right, I'm going to show you kind of some things when I'm setting up stuff, how I use it. So first off, I got a couple different things for as I'm customizing. This is just some insulation foam. You can get this at Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever. I believe the pink stuff is Home Depot and then the green stuff is Lowe's, but it's basically the same stuff. Just kind of glued two pieces together, made some holes in the top. And I've got a various different like sticks in here. So these were some longer kind of squared sticks that I cut. And I a lot of times will use these for heads. So I'll just put some blue tack at the end and put a head on there. I've got some smaller ones for different, like if I needed, let's say to hold an upper arm, it's got a smaller joint in there. So maybe I would put this in there. I've got like little, even tinier ones. So like if I wanted to, I pulled an ankle joint out of a foot for Mythic Legions, and I wanted to put this in that ankle slot to hold it so that I could paint it. I might use this one. And then I've got this special one that this is a Curtis special here, where I've got same sticks that we talked about before, but then I put a penny on the top and wrapped it in blue tack. And this is for when I have like waist pieces. So, so I got a Valiant Knight here. Just pop him apart. So if I wanted to paint up his waist piece, I would just take my little blue tack with the penny and the stick, and I would shove it up in there. And then it looks like this. So this is going to hold it in place as I'm painting it. I don't have to try to hold one side and paint it, and then I touch something that I'm not supposed to touch, and I smear it and everything else. So I can just shove this underneath, paint it as I see fit, put it in here to hold it, and there you go. So that's kind of what I do with parts that will fit on like these sticks. And then I've got one of these guys, which is called a painting clip kit. You can get these on Amazon as well. And they just got these little alligator clips with the sticks on them. You can keep the rubber parts at the end, or you can take them off depending on what you're, painting. You may want those on, you may not. And so you could do, let's say that I wanted to paint this pauldron from the Valiant Knight, right? I just take this pauldron where the little clip is that goes into this back, put that on there, and then just shove it in here. And then that's kind of my little tray as I'm painting. So I'll have this filled up with a bunch of different parts, pull this one out, work on it, paint it, and then put it in here to dry, grab the next one, so on and so forth. So as far as like holding parts, those are kind of my two main things, the little foam thing with the sticks, and then the alligator clips with the sticks. And then I'll show you one more thing, which is, I thought I just had it here. Oh, here we go. These are NECA headstands, and you can find these a lot of times at Target for like $7 in the NECA section. And these things are great if you're just doing like a single head. So if I'm doing a lot of the same head, let's say I'm batch painting, I've got another one of these foam things that's like really long that I can fit like 20 heads on, and just kind of, let's say I do all the base coat, and then I go back and I do, all the highlighting, or I do all the shadowing or whatever, and do them all at once. If you're just doing one head, these NECA headstands work really well for that. So like this is one that I've got here. Here's another one that I was working on. So, once again, you just throw some blue tack on here. So you can see I got some blue tack in there, shove that in there, and then you just, paint this thing. And then it, when you're done, you can just put it down on your desk, and it just stands up because it's got a nice little base on it. So those are really nice if you're just doing kind of an individual head. So So that is kind of my holder stuff. Let me check the chat again, make sure there's no questions on that. That's awesome pronunciation. I don't know what I pronounced, but apparently I pronounced something well. Great. Oh, probably Guaisagwe. Let's see. Jeff says, I wish I could find those NECA headstands. Haven't seen those in a year plus. They recently just came back to my Target. So I would keep checking Target, but I'm going to have 2 sets of them that I'm going to give away at the Customizing Studio event at LegionsCon. So if you're going to that event, you may be able to win one. All right. So that's kind of just, holding different parts. Let me steal Val's pauldron back and put it back where it goes. Okay. Show you something else as far as like holding the stuff that you're working on. I got a couple different things here. One is if you're a Mythic Legions customizer, probably got a lot of these freaking things laying around, right? Unless you're one of those people that just keeps all these and puts them somewhere and displays them or displays in box because you're just a sick monster. I don't know. But if you're not, you probably got a bunch of these. These work really well for just kind of holding a project. So if you've got a figure broken apart that you're going to be painting, you can just put them in here. This tray works really well. Also, my buddy Jesse got me hooked on these things. So these are like little to-go, whatever, like trays for food. You'll a lot of times get these like if you go to like a Chinese restaurant or something. But you can pick these up at Walmart. And I think they sell them in like packs of like 5 or 10 or something, and they're super cheap. And these work really well also. So if you've got, I'll just tell you, when you start getting into customizing, you're going to end up like building up these projects. I would say your average customizer has projects that they have been sitting for 6 months, a year, 2 years that they just haven't got to. Like, most customizers have just a bunch of projects that are partially in the works, or maybe it just have started that I'll get to one day, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. But these come in handy for those. If you got a project that you want to kind of keep together and you want to get back to at some point, these things work really well. So let's see. Let's check the chat again. Benny says he's a sick monster. Hey man, those inbox people, they're a different breed, that's for sure. Okay. Let's see what else. All right, this thing. All right, I'm gonna tell you, Joe Martinez got me hooked on this thing, and I wouldn't say it's a necessity. You could probably do without it. I did without it for many years. You need something to hold some water. Okay. And for many years, I just used a coffee mug. I just had a coffee mug, put some water in it, you kind of rinse off your brushes with, but you need something to hold some water. But Joe Martinez got me hooked on this Citadel paint pot. This thing is awesome. This thing, it's got little ridges on the inside that you can kind of swipe your brush up through that helps it bring it back to a point. It's got some ridges on the inside down at the bottom that as you are cleaning your brush, you can kind of rub it on those ridges at the bottom, and it really helps to get anything that's in those brushes out of it. So it helps you to keep those clean, because the faster, like let's say you just, base coated something and you base coated it in black, and now you're going to do a different color. Best thing you can do is immediately clean that brush. And I'm not saying you got to spend 20 minutes on that brush or whatever, but just put it in some water, do like that on the bottom of this pot, and get most of the paint out, wipe it on some paper towels. And that way you don't have that paint drying and getting into the bristles, deep into the bristles, because that'll ruin a brush faster than anything. So if you want to take care of your brushes, number one thing is have some water, but this thing works really well on top of the water, just for kind of keeping that stuff clean. So highly recommend this. I wouldn't say it's a have to, but it's made a huge difference for me. So okay, what else? All right, let's get to wet palette. All right, so a lot of people start out and they just get kind of a regular paint palette. It's those like circular plastic things. It's got little dimples in it that you pour the paint into, and you paint. And those things work fine. I know people that just use that. I know our buddy Jeremy Gerard in the community. He like pretty much all he uses is those paint trays. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you are like me and you take a long time on a project and you don't want to waste paint and you want your paints to last longer, a wet palette works very well for that. This is, I believe it's Masterson's Wet Palette. It's like $12 on Amazon. And basically what this is it's got a sponge in it. It's got some papers in it. And what you do is you wet the sponge, put the paper on top, and then you apply your paints on top of that paper, and the moisture from the sponge comes up through the paper and it keeps your paints from drying out. It'll help you to kind of mix paints and keep them longer, and just not dry out and clump up on you and have to use more. If you're an artist that takes a long time like I do, and you've mixed the perfect type of paint, so you had 2-3 colors that you mixed up and it's the perfect color you want, last thing you want is for that to dry up and now have to figure out what I did to mix it up again, especially if you're not a good note taker. So this kind of thing will help you in the long run doing that. The one thing I'll say is, and this is, once again, this is not the right way or wrong way. This is just my way. I don't like the papers that come with these things. The papers, I think, are too thick, I guess. It doesn't allow enough moisture to come through, and so it still kind of dries out a little bit fast for my needs. So what I do is I use parchment paper, and I specifically use the parchment paper that has like the little grid lines on them. So you'll see here it's got, kind of grid lines on here. And when I start running low on these, I tell my wife, I say, hey, Darla, can you go give me a thing of parchment paper? And then she does. And then she comes back and I say, can you cut like 100 of these? And then she does, because she's awesome. So, but this is what I use. This allows the moisture to get in a little bit easier. If you're interested in how I set up and use a wet palette, I do have a video up on Wolf King Customs YouTube channel. It's about 10 minutes long, and it shows you kind of how I set up and utilize a wet palette. For me, I need this every time. I cannot paint without a wet palette. Like I don't know. I just don't know that I would be able to paint at all without a wet palette. I'm so used to it at this point. So when it comes to like, how often do you use this stuff? For me, this is a must. Other people may say you don't need this at all. So take that however you see fit. Okay, I dropped something down here. So give me a second, because I want to show you this next. But I also kind of mess this up. And I tend to drop things often because I'm very clumsy. So that kind of sucks, but that comes with the territory. All right. So next thing I want to show you is this little thing here. And this is a little pill holder. I don't know what it was, antibiotics or who knows, whatever it was. Took the label off of it, and I've got some little stuff in here. All right. So what's the little stuff you got in there, Curtis? Well, let me tell you. First one I've got is these little sticks. They've got some cotton like on the end. You would kind of think like a Q-tip, but it's not near as spongy. It's like barely a little bit of cotton on the tip. Before I tell you what I do with that, let me show you what else I got. Then I've got some like little pointy ones that are kind of like, once again, like Q-tips, but real pointy and small. And then some little bitty bigger ones. They're a little bit bigger than the other ones. Okay. These I use for a lot of different things. Let's say I'm applying a wash and it's gathering up in a certain area that I don't want it to gather up as much in. I will use that to kind of absorb it and just kind of poking it. So like, for instance, I was painting a skeleton head today and I was doing a wash, and the wash had settled into the eye sockets, but I didn't want it to stay in the eye sockets. So I take one of these and I just kind of dip it in the eye socket, and it'll just soak up that wash, and then I'm good. Okay. The other thing I'll use these for is if I make a mistake. Let's say I'm painting some very detailed lines. So on the Mythic Legion armor, it's got a lot of like detailed lines and stuff. Let's say I went a little bit outside that line. and I don't want to just have to keep repainting the spots that I messed up. I can take like one of these or one of the smaller ones and just wet it just a little tiny bit. So dip it in my little, water pot, and then just gently rub on the area that it went over, and it'll just take that paint right off. As long as you do it quickly before the paint dries, you can just take that right off. Okay. So a lot of times this stuff is just for when I make mistakes. And then the last thing I have in here are just these little sticks. All right. And a lot of times this is for when I'm doing some sort of sculpting. So I'll show you some kind of sculpting stuff I use here in a minute. But if I'm doing any sort of sculpting and I need to kind of just flatten something out, smooth it out a little bit, this is kind of what I use for that. Or if I just want to test a paint and kind of see what a paint combo looks like or something, I may use one of these for that as well. So this comes in handy. I use this all the time. Here's a bag of the sticks with the little cotton on it. Here's some of the little pointy Q-tippy things, and here's some of the flat sticks. Once again, I'll try to get some links up on that. So let me take a look at the comments again. I know there's been a few. Let's see. I just use a Ziplocs to store my works in progress. That works too. Yep. Eric says he loves his Citadel pot. Can't paint without it. It is very nice. It's very helpful. It's one of those things that I didn't know that I needed in my life until I got it. So, just wish I could remember to put the lid on my palette when I'm done and come back the next day. I'll shrivel up. Yeah, that is one of the keys on the wet palette. You do need to put the lid back on when you're done. Evil Stick says baking parchment paper is the best alternative to those wet palette papers. I agree. So me using a paper towels is a bad idea. Paper towels for what? If you're talking about for a wet palette, I don't know. I've never tried that. That might work. Not sure. But since you brought up paper towels, that is one of the main things I use every time. And this is Viva paper towels. They are very thick. I use these for cleaning my brushes. I use this sometimes for dry brushing, depending on what I'm doing. I've also got a dry brush palette, which actually I didn't bring. I should have brought that. Like a textured palette that I use so that you don't dry up all the moisture in your brush for it. Don't tell my kids, but the paper towels that we buy for the house are the cheap ass paper towels. The paper towels I use for customizing are the good paper towels. So the expensive towels go to me, paper towels, cheap ass ones go in the kitchen. So, but paper towels, need those for sure. All right. Next, we talked about kind of, working with a water pot to clean your brushes and keep them clean. Sometimes you'll still get some dry, paint in there, and it, kind of can mess with your bristles, and you need to give it a little bit better cleaning. This stuff here, the Masters brush cleaner. This stuff is awesome. Here's what it looks like in the package. You can find it from Home Depot. You can find it, or not Home Depot. You can find it at Hobby Lobby. You can find it on Amazon. But this stuff is awesome. And it's specifically numbered because there's a number on it. What was the number? 101 BJ. 101-BJ. So that's the one I use. I know there's some different ones, but basically what you do with this, you open it up, and as you're trying to clean your brush, what you'll do is you'll dip your brush into water. You'll kind of clean it off as much as you can, wipe it off in paper towel, get a little bit more water on it. And then what you do is you gently apply it here. And let me just get a brush out real quick that I can show you with. There we go. So you'll take your brush, get some water on it, and then you'll just barely touch this and kind of go in a circular motion. All right. Very gently. You don't want to bend the bristles all the way and kind of mess up your brush, but you're just kind of gently working that in there in a circular motion. And what's going to happen is that, like, I guess soap or whatever is in here, conditioner or whatever, it starts working its way up the bristles as you make that circular motion. And it kind of gets that soap and breaks down the stuff that's in there. So, then you can clean it off immediately if you want, but a lot of times what I'll do is let that sit for a little bit. So either, just kind of lay it down or sit it upright, and then come back to it after a few minutes, rinse it off with either hot water or even in just my water pot that I have, and get that out of there, wipe it again with the paper towel, take it through these ridges right here. So do like this and kind of go upwards, and it brings it back to a point, and now you've kind of revitalized your brush a little bit. So if your brush gets too bad and it's like the bristles are going every which direction, I mean, you can try to trim it and stuff like that, but a lot of times if you've ruined the brush, there's not much coming back. But if you take care of your brushes, you rinse them regularly, you use this Masters stuff, you can get those brushes to last a long time. So let's see, we got a super chat here. Super chat from Steve O'Bag. This is for Jesse's comment. Okay, what was Jesse's comment? Jesse, we're better than that. So let's see. Viva Los Curtis. Yeah, Viva's that's the best paper towels, man. Eric says Masters brush cleaner is the best. I also agree with that. So okay. I guess I'll show you this thing while I'm at it. This is like some sort of, I don't know, like supply holder for people to have at their desk, like for pencils and pens and scissors and whatever junk that people that work, have in. But I use this for holding brushes, and, I kind of separate it to where I've got some of my bigger brushes in the back, some of my dry brushes over here, smaller brushes on this side. And then I actually have a separate one of these that's just for my really tiny detail brushes. But this is just a way to kind of keep the bristles upright, so they're not, down and getting bent or anything like that. I don't have them just laying around and getting knocked everywhere. So this is just a way for me to kind of quickly see, okay, I'm doing a big surface area, I want a wider brush, maybe I'll grab, kind of one of these back here. Or I'm doing dry brushing, but it's for a tight area. Maybe I want to grab this dry brush right here and use. So just a way to kind of quickly see your brushes and grab the tool that you're looking for. All right, next. Now this one might get a little controversial, so just FYI. This is a Micron pen. Okay. It is not paint. All right. And I personally don't use a Micron pen to finish anything. So like, I know some people that will, like, let's say, do their eyes with a Micron pen, whether it's just the pupil, they do the whole thing or whatever. I will a lot of times use the Micron pen to outline something that I want and then paint it. So the final product will be the paint over it, but I'm trying to do that first. So like an example would be, I think I've got, let's see, where's my, it is over there. Bear with me 1 minute. Talk amongst yourselves. All right. So like this is a custom that I did of a one Lord Stephen Bisciotti in his biker kind of outfit and stuff. And on his arm there, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but got this little tattoo that he has, because last year at Legion's Con, he copied his buddy Pete and got a tattoo on his arm. And it's going to be hard to see there. You probably be able to see it a little bit better on my Instagram, but the thing that he got tattooed on his arm is this, kind of logo that they did for their tribute figures. So like something like that, what I would do is I would use the Micron pen and draw it out the way that I want it to look. And once I get it to look the way that I want it to, and I feel like it looks good, then I will paint over it to do the final product. It's a lot easier to, if you make a mistake with a Micron pen, to go ahead and clean it up, with water or even some alcohol if I need to, and start over than if I paint it and have to keep redoing it. So this for me is kind of like a guide. It's like, doing the penciling first before you color it in on a comic book, kind of thing. But some people will use this and leave this as the final thing on there. I don't do that because I feel like that's not going to last for a long time. It can rub off very easily. So I don't do that, but some people do. But this still can come in handy and it has its uses. So Micron pen, maybe you don't need it, but it can come in handy for certain details. Just say that. So let's see if anybody yelled at me about that. Yeah, see, Trevor says work great for pupils. For me, I would maybe use it to place where I want a pupil to go and then paint over it. And I go, okay, there's the spot. Now you can paint over the spot. If you want to use that for pupils, you can, but I would not advise that. I don't think that's going to be a permanent fix on there. There's a good chance that over time, that pupil is going to smear or just go away altogether. So, but anyway, I digress. Okay. Super glue. I use this Loctite super glue. Okay. It has got a very tiny applicator point to it, which allows me to get into areas that I need to glue stuff without just putting a big glob everywhere. That being said, if I do get a blob everywhere, let's say that it puts on more than I want to or whatever, back to, these things. This is where this stuff comes in handy. And I just kind of wipe off the excess. So there's that. Next, alcohol swabs. This is like, for medical supplies, like you injure yourself, you need to clean something, whatever. This stuff comes in handy for a lot of things. Let's say my water pot starts getting a little bit too gross. It's got some dried paint on here and stuff. And it, it's a little stained. There's nothing like physically on there. Like you can't feel it, but it's just a little stained. This will get it right off. Get a little bit extra, paint on the actual handle of your brush or something like that. This stuff will work. You get it extra paint on a part that you tried using some water and just taking it off and it won't come off. This will work. So these things come in really handy. They're tiny. You can then, utilize this with, let's say, like one of these sticks and get into really tight areas. But yeah, love having some alcohol swabs nearby. Once again, probably not something you absolutely need to have, but comes in handy. Next, sculpting. So a lot of people will tell you green stuff, and green stuff may be amazing. I've never used it. Okay. I've used a thing called liquid green stuff, which is by Citadel, that is just kind of it's like a thinned down version of kind of green stuff that's already mixed that you can kind of get into tight crevices. If you got like little slivers of, like where two parts came together and it has like a seam or something, it's good for that kind of stuff. But for any kind of actual sculpting, like you're sculpting something onto a head, you're sculpting a pauldron, whatever you're sculpting, I've always used this stuff. This is Apoxie Sculpt. Very similar to green stuff in terms of it comes with two different mixtures that you kind of combine together and knead together. And then you got some working time that you could actually sculpt the stuff, and then it dries and hardens and you're ready to go. When I first got into customizing, Zombie 13 had recommended this. This is what he was using. And so this is what I started using, and I love it. And there's no reason for me to try anything different because it works great. So it's got an A part and a B part, and you just mix it together. You let it sit for 5 minutes. Then you're able to work with it for a while. And then after about a day, it's dried, ready to go. You can paint on it, sand it, whatever you need to do. So once again, if you're coming to the customizing studio event, you might get yourself a chance to get one of these guys. So go back to the comments. Let's see. Let's take this one. Collectors Express says, before the recent change, the formula, Winsor & Newton brush cleaner and restorer was great. I have one last bottle of the older type. Yeah, I haven't tried that one. It might be worth checking out. Brett says, this is all very overwhelming. I'm sorry, Brett. Once again, you don't need all this stuff. I'm just telling you what I use and what I've found beneficial. You can pick up whatever you need. I would say the main things would be, get something to hold some water, even if it's a coffee mug, get some brushes, get some paint. That you should be ready to go. But this other stuff can be helpful. Let's see. Trevor says, finish or gloss coat over the eyes can protect it. Yeah, it can. On the Micron pens, it can also smear it. So just be careful. That stuff can smear pretty easily. But since you're talking about sealing, let's talk about sealing. These two are my favorite as far as spray sealers. And they're both Mr. Super Clear. I've got a gloss and I've got a matte. All right. Most things I'm going to use the matte finish because I'm customizing Mythic Legions. They typically have a matte look rather than a glossy look. But if there's something that I need to have a little bit more glossy, I will use the gloss. The thing is, you can use these in combination. So let's say that you are doing a sword and you want the metal to look a little bit glossier than a flat. You can use this, and if it's a little too shiny, then you can hit it with this one and kind of bring that shine down a little bit. So you can use both of them together. But Mr. Super Clear, you can get these from Hobby Lobby. You can get them from Amazon. I use the one that says UV cut on here. It just has worked better for me. But these things are awesome. And then as far as what like Trevor was talking about, eyes, inside of a mouth, something like that, I use this Citadel Ardcoat. I was using some different things, some tester stuff that people recommended, some other stuff. I think it was Noah Pratt that was doing a bunch of like dwarf heads and stuff, and his eyes looked fantastic. And his like the inside of the mouth and stuff looked fantastic. And I had asked him, and he said, this Citadel Ardcoat. I tried this and never went back. This stuff is awesome. And just kind of a note with that, like, be open to new ideas. Be open to, people sharing tips and techniques and different things. You may get comfortable doing it a certain way, and maybe that's great, but if you don't try anything new, you're not going to learn and grow. So, try some stuff, throw some stuff at the wall, see what sticks, see what you like, go for there. Everything that I'm recommending today may not work for you, may not like any of it, but you may pick up one or two things from it and you go, man, those two things were awesome. The rest of the stuff he was talking about, bullshit. But yeah, just be open because this stuff really good. Appreciate that from Noah. Let's see. All right, now we're getting into kind of less frequently stuff. So Brett, like this is stuff you absolutely don't need, but I'm going to throw it out here anyway. This is a little vibrating paint pot mixer. Okay. It normally has a cord on it, but that's over by my desk. And basically on this, you just leave it plugged in, you take your paint pot, you put it on here, and it starts jiggling it around and shaking it up. A lot of paints, you can just kind of shake up by hand, no problem. Maybe you throw a ball bearing in it, or a plastic bead in it, shake it up, and you're good to go. Some paints are a little bit more difficult. Like one that I found to be really difficult is the Turbo Dork, like metallic paints or color shift paints. They separate very bad. There's like a film of like foam on top, and then like the colors all at the bottom, and you got to shake that stuff for like ever in order to get it to work right. So this works really well for that. You just, put that on here, hold it, and it just, whatever. And maybe you could do other things with this. I don't know, put it on your back or something. I don't know, but works really well for mixing paints if you need to. Next, glue gun. And I will tell you, don't get this glue gun because it sucks. This glue gun that I got, it actually a lot of times will leak right around here at the end and start dripping and stuff. But it had a really nice pointy tip on it so that I could get into tight spaces. So, you know, there's going to be times where you may need a glue gun. So I would try to get one with a pointy tip, but maybe not this one because this one sucks. All right, let's look at some other things. You get a figure and the limbs are too loose, right? You grab it and you shake it and the legs flip and flop around and everything. This stuff, which you're not going to be able to read the label because I've had it forever. This stuff will last you like forever. This one's lasted me like 3 years. This is Kiki's Fix Loose Joints. And the only place I've ever seen it is on eBay. It's like $10, but this stuff is awesome. It's got a little tiny nozzle at the end. It comes with a little like pin here that you poke down in it that breaks it up because it will dry in that nozzle. And then you just use this and you squirt it into whatever your joint is. So if it's an ankle joint, it's a knee joint, whatever, you squirt it in there, you work that around a little bit and then let it sit overnight. By morning, probably going to be in good shape. It's going to be able to hold a pose. It's going to be able to stand. You're going to be in good shape. This stuff is amazing. If you got loose joints, this stuff works. You got tight joints. So now you just got something and you know, it just won't move. When you're trying to move it, it's either sticking or maybe it's making like a loud squeaking noise. You're afraid it's going to break. This stuff, shock oil, is amazing. Now, what I do is I got a separate bottle on Amazon with an applicator tip that I put the shock oil into so that I can get it into more of kind of a tight space and not apply as much because this stuff comes out pretty quickly and it's got a big opening at the end and you just don't want this stuff getting everywhere. It's basically just an oil and it'll just, yeah, it'll get everywhere. So I like putting it in something like this that you can apply it to a much smaller area. But if you got something that's just so stiff that you can't move, this thing will help you out. Let's see. Some tweezers. Need some tweezers, right? I got two different ones here. This one's just a straight one. This one's kind of got it angled if I want to get into, you know, tight spaces and stuff. Both of these are really tiny at the end. And they have a pressure system here where when you push it opens, when you let go it closes. This works really nicely if you're trying to hold something small because you don't have to keep pressing on it in order to hold it. You let go in order to hold it. So this works out really well. I think this comes in a 2-pack for like $10 on Amazon. So these are really nice. So there you go. Let me check the comments again. Trevor says Millie Putt works good as well. I've tried that. That works pretty good. Personally, between the two, I like the Apoxie Sculpt better. I can't say Apoxie Sculpt versus green stuff because I've never really used the green stuff. So LeBron says he uses super glue gel. Okay. Eric says, for those feeling overwhelmed, please visit our tables at Legions Con. We've done all the work for you. There you go. You can just buy it done. Carlos says, super clear, gets cleaned out when I go to Hobby Lobby. Same. That's why I get mine through Amazon. I'll usually order like 4 or 5 cans at a time. So Eric says, I can personally vouch for almost everything that Curtis has recommended so far. Thank you very much. Collector Express. I have a 2-part sealing system. I seal my customs with a duplicator automotive clean top coat, which is very durable, and that cures. And then after it cures, I spray it with Mr. Hobby Matte. Okay, cool. And then Brendan says Kiki's is great. Learned about it. Collecting MP transformers works every time. So okay, let's see. What else we got? Toothbrush. just get a pack of cheap toothbrushes. This works for multiple different things. If you need to, you know, clean your little pot, you can do that. You want to clean a part, you want to scrub it. Maybe you're using some sort of fodder from another line and it has kind of an oily feel to it. You want to scrub it. This will work. This also works for what they call speckling. So what you can do is you can like dip this in some paint and you just kind of go like this. And you probably saw this like some paint dust particles came off of there, where you can like apply some sort of speckle to whatever it is you're painting. For instance, let's say that you're, you know, painting up a nice redheaded person and they've got a lot of freckles on their face and you want to apply those freckles and you don't want to do every little dot by hand. You can just put this in that paint, just give it one of those, you know, splatter on their face. And, you know, depending on how far away you do it, how much paint you have applied, you can get that really nice natural look to it. If you have it too close or you have too much paint on there, it's going to just kind of, you know, splotch on there. May not be good, but toothbrushes can come in handy. Once again, probably not something you need to have, but you know, they can do some things. Let's see. Next, Dremel. Once again, probably not something that you absolutely need to have, but if you're going to be doing stuff, having one that is cordless is really nice because it allows you to, you know, not have to be next to an outlet in order to use it. You can get into tighter spaces. If you're trying to, you know, open something or, you know, change the look of something, like for instance, I had a set of pauldrons that I did for a custom that I wanted to add some like runes to it. You just, you know, put in whatever bit that you're trying to use on there and then, you know, make your little runes and go from there. That's another thing that I would like use a Micron pen for. I would draw out the runes on the pauldrons that I wanted to carve out, then use the Dremel to actually, you know, do it so that I'm not trying to just freehand it all with the Dremel. So, but yeah, like I said, if you're going to get a Dremel, try to get a cordless one. I think it is a lot more beneficial for what we're doing. And I think maybe the last thing I've got, these heat shrink tubes. Now, this is something you may never use, but there's times that this come in handy. So this stuff is for like you've got two wires, you're trying to put them together, and you know, you don't want the exposed wire to where somebody could grab it and electrocute themselves or something. You put this stuff over it after you've, you know, linked the two wires together. You slide this over this, and then you heat it up, and it tightens onto the cord. Okay, but what we can use this stuff for is for tightening connection points. So let's say one example, I have a video up on my own YouTube from the Mondo He-Man. So when the Mondo He-Man came out, there's a lot of problems where it was popping apart at the waist. The ball that would go into the torso was not staying put. It would just pop apart. So you would just, you know, find the right heat shrink tubes. This one has a bunch of different sizes in here. So, and you find the right one that fits over the like the male part of it. So like the part coming up from the torso that's got the ball on it. You know, you would like take this and slide it over it. You want it to have a tight fit, but not so tight that you can't get it on, but a tight fit. And then once you get that on there, you just take a heat gun to it, heat it up, and it shrinks onto it and like holds steady. And now that has given you like a little bit extra layer on there and made it a little bit thicker. So now when you pop that torso back on, it'll stay. And you can use that for certain things. So let's say that you've got, you know, a hip that's popping out of socket, or you've got a knee that's popping out of socket or whatever. You can use this heat shrink tubing to thicken that up a little bit, and that may, you know, fix your situation. I know there's been a few figures that have had like loose wrist, like the hands just pop out of the gauntlet. This can work for that. You find the right size, you slip it over the little port on the hand that goes into the gauntlet, heat it up, pop it in there, you're good to go. It still gives you the range of movement that you want. So it's not like, you know, just gluing it in there and then it's stuck and it won't move. But it won't just fall out as easily. So once again, probably something that you're not going to use very often, but when you do want it, it can come in handy. And then I have two more things, but they're not I don't have them in hand. I've got them on screen. So let me share my screen here. This one is a heat gun. Now, you can use a lot of different things to heat up your parts. You could use hot water. Some people get like an electric kettle or, you know, something like that and use water. You can do that. You can use a hair dryer. Hair dryer will work. You may have to work a little bit longer to get it. I personally use a heat gun. There's certain things that, like the heat shrink tubing, that I want to really heat up, and the heat gun will get it to that temperature a lot faster than a hair dryer. You have to be careful with a heat gun though, because it gets super freaking hot. And so, you know, a couple things. One, you need to keep it moving. So if you're trying to heat something up, like let's say you're trying to heat up a figure because its joints are a little bit stiff, you can't just hold it in one place. It will melt your figure. So you got to keep the thing moving. And then the other thing is that the metal part on here, so like, you know, right here, like this, the metal part at the end, that gets really hot. Don't touch your skin with it because it hurts. And I can tell you from personal experience that it hurts. So don't touch the metal. This is the one that I have. It's got a little hook here at the bottom, and my work area that I've got just kind of like a screw that hangs out from that. And I hook this hook on there and just hang it up when I'm not using it, grab it when I need it, use it, and put it back. So this has come in very helpful for me, but there's a lot of different options. This is just the one that I use. And then the other one I wanted to show was some sort of magnification. Now, this is what I use. It is a magnifying light that has three different, you know, kind of colors of light. You've got the more natural, you've got the more yellowish, and then the more white. And then it has a magnifier with an arm on it. A lot of people will use like the little headsets that have the magnification on it. Some people will just use readers, like reading glasses. Some people, depending on what their glass prescription is, they just may need to take their glasses off, and then all of a sudden they can see like a freaking superhero. For me, this is what I use. And the reason I like this better than some of those other options is, instead of magnifying everything, it only magnifies the thing that I'm looking at, the thing that I want to see. So if I pull this arm over and I'm looking at, you know, let's say I've got head like this, and I just want to magnify this, I pull that arm over top of that head, and the only thing that's magnified is that head. If I look at my paint brushes, they're not magnified. If I look at my water pot, it's not magnified. If I look at my kids are telling me something over here, they're not magnified. If I've got that headset on, it like everywhere I look is magnified, or I got to take it up and take it down and all this kind of thing. With the magnifying arm, I just pull it over to where I need it. That part is magnified. Everything else is not. And it's amazing. I would have a really hard time painting without the magnifier. This is something that I saw Sherry from the studio was using a while back at a G-Con event. Had seen it, and I don't, like I said, I don't think I could paint without one of these now. So this works out really well. And I think that is everything for you. I could go into stuff for airbrush. I just recently started airbrushing, but a couple things with that. Number one, I'm very much a beginner at airbrushing, so I don't know that my, you know, input would be very valuable. The other thing is that there's a whole range of other things. I could probably go for another hour talking about stuff with an airbrush. So, you know, maybe when I get a little bit more comfortable with it, I may you know, do one of these later on. But that's everything that pretty much I use for normal painting. So let me go back to the chat, see if I have any other questions. Curtis, do you keep the heat gun near your desk? Yes, I do. So I keep it plugged in. I keep it that screw, and it kind of hangs there. Where it's hanging, the metal part is not touching anything. It's like behind my couch, so it's not going to accidentally like burn anything or touch anything. But I do keep it right near me at all times. Hoth the Basher says also brush teeth. Yeah, you could use the toothbrush to brush teeth. I just wouldn't use the same one that you also use, you know, to clean your stuff with paint. So that would probably be bad. Carlos says the tubes also work connecting different toy wings to mythic backholes. That's an interesting idea. I'd never thought of that. So Eric says I use hot water to disassemble figures and a heat gun to assemble when I'm done painting. That makes sense. Terrence says this is a great video. Thanks for making it. No problem, man. The big part is going to be trying to get the links to all this stuff in the video afterwards, in case you guys want to find this stuff on Amazon. But I will work diligently to try to get that as soon as possible. Joe says that's me. I'm super nearsighted, so magnifier is built in. Yeah, those folks that can just kind of like take off their glasses or whatever, and they can see, like, you know, down to the microscopic level is pretty impressive. Let's see, Benny. I have one of these actually got from a company that was throwing it away because of missing the bottom table clip. So I made my own clip and to grab my table with. That works out. So for lighting, so that lamp, that magnifier that I was showing does have a light on it. I also have a light above the area that I'm working. So I've got both of those going when I'm painting. Jeff says, great, useful video, Curtis. Much appreciated. Thank you very much. Let's see. And then Oz says, pop it in and say hi. Still working, catch the replay. Awesome. Well, I'm pretty sure that is it. I mean, I guess I could share one more thing, which is if you're working on customizing Mythic Legions, probably the main thing that you need is Mythic Legions. Specifically, Legion builders are the way to go. These things are offered at a great price point, whether you get it from, you know, a retailer, whether you get it from the Four Horsemen themselves. You can get these things super cheap because they have limited paint options or paint apps on there. But it doesn't take much to add a few details on here, paint some rivets, paint some lines, whatever, and then all of a sudden this thing pops like crazy. They do not hold back on the sculpt work on these, but you get them at a cheaper price because it has, you know, less paint apps. So these are perfect for customizing. So if you're working on Mythic Legion customizing or even Cosmic Legion customizing, grab yourself some Legion builders. You won't regret it. And this is kind of a little baggy system that I picked up from Dorklair. You know, instead of having all those, the packages that these come in, you just throw the little card, the accessories, the figure in there, and it takes up a lot less room, and you can kind of throw these in your garage and have them ready to go. So then you go, oh, hey, I need a Dark Templar, and you just go grab one out of the garage, and boom, there you are. So, yeah, I think that's it. Any final questions or comments or anything else I can help you guys with, throw them in the chat. We'll close this out here in just a couple minutes. Let's see. Eric says you're right about wearing magnifiers. I saved the arm one on Amazon. Thanks, Curtis. No problem, man. Joe says I've considered customizing those Mystic Legends. Yeah, they work out really great. It's an amazing line for customizing, and it's an amazing community too. Once again, if you're just getting into this, or maybe you're seeing this video and you don't know anything about Mythic Legions, it's a sword and sorcery line done by the Four Horsemen. They've done a lot of different stuff. They also do a line called Cosmic Legions if you're more into space stuff, but they are amazing. The community is amazing. There's a lot of amazing, talented artists. Check out the Cabal. There's a Cosmic Cabal as well as Mythic Legions Cabal. So you want to be in those. And it's just an amazing toy community that, you know, celebrates artists, and everybody helps out one another, and they're willing to offer tips and techniques and everything. And like I said, the stuff that I showed you today is what works for me. And a lot of that I've picked up over the years from watching different people, watching a lot of videos, watching miniature painters, you know, tutorials from different folks on Instagram, all kinds of different stuff. And, you know, you try things out. Some stuff works for you. Some stuff doesn't work for you. But, you know, just try out a bunch of different things and pick up the stuff that you like and go from there. So another thing you'll see, like, people make fun of me all the time. I got my little painted thumbnail. I was just working on some customizing today. And a lot of times when I'm painting, I want to make sure that I've got the right amount. The paint that I've got on my brush, I want to make sure that it's the right amount. It's the right thickness, that I've got it coming to a nice point. So I will a lot of times just kind of paint it on my thumbnail. And then when I wash my hands, everything comes off except for my thumbnail until I actually physically peel it off. So people will make fun of me, but that's my technique. Same thing when I'm dry brushing. So I will use the back of my hand to make sure that I don't have too much paint on my brush that I'm dry brushing, because your hand has a bunch of little lines and stuff in it, and so if I dry brush the back of my hand and it completely turns it that color, I know I've got too much paint on it. If it only hits the surfaces but not the crevices in between, so I can still see the crevices of my skin, then I've got the right amount on my dry brush, and I can now apply it to the figure. But those are just techniques that I use. It's not necessarily the right or wrong way. It's just what I use. So Tanya says, great tips and tricks. I picked up a lot of these from you in the customizing studio. So yeah, if you are getting into customizing, we do have this customizing studio we do every single Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern. There's other times that we do it. If there's like a holiday or something and people have time off and they want to do one, we'll do it other times of the week, but we are always in there on Sundays. And then we do have a customizing studio event going on at Legion's Con this year. If you were able to get into that, awesome. We're looking forward to seeing you. We're going to have some great artists like Tanya in there running tables and helping, people to kind of get, further their customizing journey. Each person that's in there is going to get a t-shirt. They're going to get a bust that they're going to get to paint, and they're going to get a chance at winning some of these prizes. Some of the stuff that I've shown you today, I've got a bunch of this that I'm going to have as door prizes. So, yeah, can't wait to see folks. And if you weren't able to get into that event, our buddy Kent Pool from Kent Pool Collects on YouTube and Instagram, he is going to be filming the event so that people can kind of see how that went, and if they're interested in attending next year, or if they have questions, hopefully we can answer those and get those out there. So Eric says, can't wait to see everybody in a few weeks. That'll be awesome. Looking forward to it. And I think that's it, folks. So I'm honestly surprised I made it through all that stuff in an hour and 15 minutes or hour and 16 minutes. So if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the comments. I'll try to get back to them and let you know, or hit me up, Art by Ackerman on Instagram, or you can hit me up, Curtis Ackerman, on Facebook. And I will try to, answer whatever I can. And I'm going to work diligently on getting these links up in the description of the video. So if there's anything that you guys want to go to directly, you don't have to try to hunt and find it. You can just go into the description and just go right to it. So with that being said, Benny says, how do I get into that event, or is there no more space? Spaces are full now. So we had opened it up for about, I think it was about 2 weeks, and it filled up. We then had a waiting list that kind of went for a couple months, and we did fill the waiting list. Those people got in, but now it is completely full. So that being said, there may be somebody that can attend, which could open up something. And one that I know of, Terrence, who was here earlier, I'm not sure if he's still here. He had paid for an extra spot for one of his family members that's not going to be able to attend. And I believe we're going to give that spot away this Sunday on Shooting the Shelf. So don't quote me on that, because it's up to Terrence, but I'm pretty sure that he's going to give that spot away this Sunday. So tune in, Shooting the Shelf. You may get a chance to get into the studio if you didn't already. So, all righty, folks. I appreciate you joining live. Anybody watching on the replay, thank you as well. And until next time, keep customizing. See you, folks.
These are a few of our random ass things.